Several years ago, one of my jobs was to work as an aide for an elder woman who is on disability. She was a person of faith, of a very deep and fierce faith. And we got to know each other pretty well, and we had these great conversations and arguments about big religious questions. So this was at a time when I was struggling to find a church home where I felt at home. It was a good fit. And one day I was telling her about a church that I had visited that past Sunday. And I was saying how, I liked this and I really liked that. And I felt moved by this. But there was this and that and the other thing that I wasn't happy about. And there was this one person who acted like this and I didn't like that. And she just looked at me and said, Nathaniel, the hardest part about being a Christian is having to deal with other Christians. But how else are you going to learn? And she got me. She had my number there. She had zeroed in on how my epic quest for some kind of utopia of a faith community had really become a way for me to avoid the, at times, hard work of actually learning to be a member of a faith community with actual human beings and being shaped in my faith through those relationships. And so I went back to that church that I had visited. And as a matter of fact, that was the United Church of Santa Fe, which became the first UCC church that I was a part of. And I quickly grew to love that community and to be schooled by that community in how to align my living just a little bit more into the way of Jesus and to be more human and humane and humble with my fellow humans. We shouldn't expect churches to be utopias. We can't expect churches to be utopias. And this is not to excuse bad behavior, but it's also not to excuse our avoidance of being schooled into schools of love. Churches shouldn't be bastions of purity or perfection or righteousness or houses that just reinforce our judgmentalism one way or the other. Churches at best are schools of love. Schools of love. I borrow this term from the progressive evangelical writer Brian McLaren. Churches as schools of love. We all know that Jesus taught, love the neighbor, love the stranger, love the enemy, receive God's love, and share that love with all. But how we actually do that, what that actually means for us in our real lives with real people, this is an ongoing journey of growth and of challenge. And it's simply impossible to do alone. We need to help each other out with grace and with grit. And we need help from the wisdom of those who have come before. And we need, above all, help from God. God help us. And that is the purpose of church, to help each other grow, even just a little, to grow in our capacity to love and to receive love, and thus to become more activated as human beings created for and of and by love. And sometimes this is joyous and fun in a community, in celebrating together. Sometimes this is tender in supporting each other through loss and through hardship. And sometimes this is tough in loving each other through conflict or just loving each other through those little irritations that come when we've got a quirky cast of characters all thrown in together. How do we grow in love? How do we see every encounter as an opportunity or a challenge to grow in love? How do we deepen in our realization of divine love in and through our lives together? So through this pandemic, one of the things that I've appreciated and I've heard other people appreciate at our church is how there seems to have been a growth. There seems to be a growth in our willingness to be vulnerable together, to be trusting and worthy of trust in supporting each other through our shared vulnerability. And there's also been, it seems, a renewed energy of genuine sharing, of sharing heartfelt, creative expressions of who we are and what we can do. And that's been really a moving part of the past few weeks when our focus on Sunday morning has been on the spiritual work of the artists in our midst here, in that authentic sharing of ourselves. So this spirit of witnessing each other in authentic sharing, however we do that, may that grow and grow, because this is key to being a school of love. And I just invite and encourage more and more of this in whatever ways we meet as a church community, especially as we explore all that we need and are led to do together as a school of love, in new ways, in old ways, right here and now, in this place and time. And if you hear this and you say, well, that's not been my experience here, that this school has been, or that this church has been a school of love, we need to hear that. That's very important to name. Because I hope that it's clear that love here, Christian love, what's called agape love, is not sentimental love. It's not just being nice and comfortable all the time. Jesus, for his part, as an embodiment of divine love, was profoundly challenging to the people in his lives. He did a whole lot of schooling, folks, in how to become more loving. He exposed blind spots and hypocrisies, which in the moment can seem harsh, but with grace becomes opportunities to grow in becoming more loving of more people. And churches, I hope, can be a place to do that with and for each other, graciously, to help each other see the ways that we can be blocking our love from extending to another person, and the ways that we can block ourselves from receiving the love and mercy and acceptance from God and from each other. So part of what my elder was teaching me in the story that I opened with was how important it is to hang in there as a school of love, even through disillusionment and disappointment and judgment, and to allow things to become grist for the mill as learning opportunities. So here's the other thing about this kind of love that churches often miss in a kind of expectation of that this is about sentimental and nice love. So the religious scholar Karen Armstrong has pointed out that the language that Jesus uses around loving your neighbor as yourself, loving your enemies, is the same language used in treaties at the time. These treaties between states and tribes that were agreements of peace and mutual defense. Jesus was echoing those treaties. And so Jesus is saying, come to each other's defense. Love each other as yourselves. Come to each other's aid. Be good allies to each other. Love each other in that way. Love everyone in that way. Love especially those whom no one else is loving in this way. No one has any allies. Who's in their corner? Those who are the least and the last and the lost, the most vulnerable, those most likely to be refused respect, refused mercy, refused dignity. That is key to how churches can be schools of love. And I thank God for all the ways that we do this, and I thank God for all the opportunities that we have to grow. Amen.